out, how way, ay, 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 ay. How we out, ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. How way, ay, 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 ay. How way, ay, 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 ay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We're also simulcasting tonight with Real Liberty Media, and we also are simulcasting with Confluence Radio. So welcome, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I have a great guest tonight. We're going to talk shit about the psychopaths in charge for a little bit, and then the second hour we'll have an anarchist roundtable. Stick around. You're going to get information and analysis that you won't get in the mainstream media, and you won't get it in the Indian media either. So I just wanted to give you guys a short commentary about supporting the media that you get something from, the real deal. There's been a lot of people in the alternative media really getting down on people for asking for their work to be supported. And I think that's a bunch of crap, because we're working hard for you. There's a lot of people that go into doing just this show behind the scenes, not just me. And when you support, if you get something out of this show, if you learn something, support it. So don't be afraid. If you want to support the show and the food sovereignty project that me and my family have going on, you can go to PayPal, that evil site known as paypal.com, and my email address is Valkyra, VALKYRA 1969 at gmail.com. We're in our second year of our goal of obtaining food sovereignty for ourselves, and we're sharing the wealth along the way, and the wealth in terms of food that won't kill you. Organic food that won't kill you. And we're teaching ourselves. So our first year out in the woods between Winchester, Virginia, and Martinsburg, West Virginia, by the creek, by Back Creek. It's totally wild. So our first year was infrastructure, putting gardens in that had always been wild, digging up rocks and putting in fences. And then my husband Majikia built a hoop house, and we were able to actually get salad through the winter in the hoop house. And then this year we've really concentrated on making healthy pollinator habitat. So, and we've been very successful at that. It is just a hummingbird, butterfly, bee, songbird wonderland out there. So we're going to keep it up. And then this winter we're going to keep the hoop house going and study up on permaculture and just keep on keeping on with that. So, I just wanted to let you guys know about that. So without further ado, I would like to welcome my super awesome guest of MediaMonarchy.com. Welcome to The Bridge, James Evan Pilato.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. You asked me what we were going to talk about, and I thought, well, we could just talk shit about the psychopaths in charge, because there's so many con games going on right now that we could just pick one and start making fun of it, because it's so obvious. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
So here's the first one, because I honestly don't know. So it's Saturday, so I've got errands and doing other things, and my cat might jump on me here at any moment. What is the current status with the Dakota Access Pipeline? They've stopped it. They haven't stopped it. Where do we stand right now, Saturday, September 10th?
Yeah, it's pretty confusing, isn't it? Well, there was two decisions that came down. Well, there was one decision, which was the court said F you to the Standing Rock Sioux, who had filed an injunction on last Friday, saying there's some grave sites over here in this spot exactly right here. And then the next day, Saturday, during my show, they bulldozed right through that site where they said the bones were and destroyed the evidence. And then that's when they took out the dogs and the pepper spray and sicked them on the people. So then this Friday, yesterday, the injunction that the Standing Rock Sioux had filed was denied. But then there was this joint statement that was put out by the Department of the Interior, the Department of the Army, and I guess the Obama administration. And all they said was that we're putting a halt to this, but it's not a halt forever. It's a halt so that we could reconsider things. And a lot of people that are on the ground, they're saying, well, this is a small victory because it's putting a halt to the actual construction right now today, but they're just going to reconsider all their past decisions. And once they do that, they'll just probably screw us again, and they'll take the steam out of the movement while they're doing it. So,
and they're able to get a little bit of positive PR for the Justice Department. I'm surprised they would actually do something sort of for the people. So actually here I was able to kind of start. Justice Department overrules court. Dakota Access Pipeline construction halted September 9th on anti-media.
Yeah. So people are celebrating, but at the same time they know that this is just because this movement had so much juice in it that they have to do something. And all of the past things that have worked before, turning them into violent thugs, that wasn't working because of alternative media and because of social media. Quite frankly, they could not use their old playbook, which was turn these people into criminals and make people hate and fear them. They just couldn't do it because too many of those people were on their friends list or, their Twitter feed. It wasn't working. So they've got to do this other thing. But it's been interesting because the last 3 shows, we really have been taking a really, close look at it and getting reports from people that are right there in the thick of it. And,
now,
go ahead.
I saw someone, I think it was Joe Rogan. I saw Joe Rogan tweet yesterday in regards to this situation. You see, guys, this is why it's so important about North Dakota legalizing armed drones. And I kind of recall that story.
Holy moly.
And those are Corbin and I have been doing New World Next Week for a long, long time now. And we kind of joke when we're doing episodes sometimes and, divvying up and figuring out exactly what we're going to talk about each week. So many times ago, didn't we already talk about this? I swear there's a time we already covered this story exactly, because as the years went by, we talked about drones being armed and the sort of tiptoe as it goes. Mm-hmm. And the situations in North Dakota, because I think that was one of the first places they had used drones for cattle rustling.
Mm-hmm.
Or anti-cattle rustling, I suppose, poaching.
Right. And I think it is now legal in North Dakota to arm them with like pepper spray, the drones with pepper spray. I read something, but I didn't get a chance to research whether it was true or not. I said this can't possibly be true. But yeah.
So that is the crazy, that's kind of the future we've seen laid out for us in all our sci-fi movies. Mm-hmm. We're going to be fighting drones, and we're going to be figuring out, a T-shirt. Yeah, that's one of the best ways to knock them out. Oh, well, if you've got a shotgun, yeah, that's even better.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you kind of like that Second Amendment a little bit, even though people take it to the extreme.
I mentioned a story on my show the other day about a woman in Virginia no, it wasn't Winchester. You just planted Winchester in my brain because you said that. But somewhere in Virginia, she lawfully blasted a drone on her property.
Yeah.
And I feel like stories are only going to come more and more.
But they'll continue to try to make it seem like it's a cool thing to have a drone, like drones are cool. That will continue to play out in the mainstream. And movies will come out. Drones will be our best friends in the movies,
Yeah, because you can just easily project it ahead and put yourself in that situation. And just like we did with cameras, we're going to go, oh, well, shit, if everybody's going to be filming me, I at least better have a camera on me at all times too. So I'll just tape everything I do. We'll get to the point where we just have our little guardian drones that hover around us and they can protect us and they'll always shoot video or shoot at our enemies. Isn't that what it'll be?
Or the Indians will have the armed raptors that we let loose instead. That the primitive savages won't have the drones. We'll have the animals on our side.
Hey, so speaking of savages, how'd you end up in my home state of West Virginia? That's, I know, one thing when you and I were first kind of getting in contact with each other. I was like, you're in Martinsburg? I was like, I lived 10 minutes away from Martinsburg for a decade.
It's a funny story how that happened, because I've moved around my whole life. And I'll just start with, all right, back in the late 90s, I was living in the Bay Area. I met my husband at a powwow. And one night, I think it was 2002, I got this voice, like in the middle of the night, said, "Go now, your mother needs you." And so I told my husband, and he didn't look at me like I was insane. And he said, "Let's start packing." And so we packed up and we moved to central Pennsylvania, which is where my mom was, had started an organic berry farm. And I thought she just needed my help with the farm, but she was in much greater need when we arrived. She was suicidal. So, there was that. And then, there was no work in central Pennsylvania. So, we went down to the DC area where we could find work. And then we ended up coming out to this area because DC was so expensive. And yeah, and I found a job where I can pretend to be a secretary and we can try to build this alternative reality.
Well, and I love to think, and I've been in Oregon now for over a decade. And I don't know that Cassie and I have ever really said that we're here forever. You know, as you start to get older and kind of just as you're saying, being further away from family gets harder and harder as the time goes by. And Portland is now starting to feel pretty squishy and overrun. It feels like the place everybody moved to in the last couple of years and that everybody's continuing to move to. So it's just kind of getting overstuffed and all kinds of people, and they're bringing all their cars and all their stuff. And like anything, I always make music analogies. It's kind of like anything. Once something kind of gets overrun and overtaken, the balance is going to get shifted, and it's going to be more people who aren't sort of the conscientious.
Yes.
In the beginning, you'll start to kind of lose all of the things that made it nice in the first place. It's just tough living through a city during its transition, its growth spurt. Because it's sort of like, if I wanted to live in a city where I was stuffed with people and didn't want to give a shit about them, I could have moved to Manhattan a long time ago. My brother lived there. You know, I've spent lots of time there. But my dream, I think, in a lot of ways, is that West Virginia could become, it would be so easy for West Virginia to flip and kind of become the most freedom-oriented state on the entire East Coast, to give, New Hampshire run for its money. If West Virginia just started growing cannabis. I know it sounds like pipe dream, but imagine all the things and all the problems. And I talk about this in my work a lot because I have to look away 3,000 miles to see my home state kind of some way kind of willingly beating itself to death. It's like, replace your coal industry, which is already screwed and done, and you don't make any of the money off of it anyway. It all goes out of state. Just grow cannabis. Just grow cannabis, and you'll sell it, and you'll be an empire. And then all that stuff you can also use as your medicine, because you guys all got hooked on opioids from Big Pharma, and then you moved on to worse stuff. That's why there's more overdoses in West Virginia than anywhere in America right now. Did you see that story?
Yes.
Like sort of the spread of, so many overdoses in Huntington and then so many overdoses in Cleveland. It kind of spread around the mid-Ohio valley of just this deadly, crappy heroin scourge.
And every place where they do legalize cannabis for medical use, opioid deaths go down by 40% or more. Isn't that funny how that happens? Even if it was just hemp. Just industrial hemp alone would change everything. Absolutely everything. And that's what we hope will happen, because we're going to fill every square inch of our 6 acres with it once they do. And back in the 90s, when I used to travel around, I was going to college in New England. I used to travel around the different colleges and educate people about the marijuana conspiracy and cannabis and hemp and all that. And it was actually my idea to put a table at Lollapalooza. I'd gone to Lollapalooza and I was like, hey, we need a table here. And then the next year there were tables at all of them. I didn't get to go, but the tables did. But so then I said then, it was like 1990, I don't know, 2 or 3. I said eventually it'll become the only viable economic option, because we could already see the signs of how the psychopaths in charge were just pumping the economy dry and evaporating the middle class. It started then. And when, they learned their lesson with Vietnam in terms of drafting people to fight, they said, no, we just got to train them to want to. And then we'll make most of the jobs, contractor jobs that pay over $100,000 a year, like generator mechanics and electricians
for the private buddies.
Yeah. And there'll be no bid contracts and everybody will get rich off of killing people. Won't that be fun? And they've been doing it ever since.
And all those jobs all disappeared thanks to the amazing people who have D's after their names. Not like those evil people who have R's after their names.
Yeah, they're on the same team. I learned that recently. After the ObamaCon game. I fell for it the first time. Then I woke up.
It's just, it's so ridiculous. If we spend any too long, like if I look at it for too long any one time, like it's just like, are you guys serious? I can't believe you're falling for this. I can't believe you're so invested in this.
Yep. And then I also called it. I said, next it'll be, we have to, it'll be the first woman president con game. Whereas last time it was the first black president con game. And I said, this time I'm not going to fall for it. Because, you look at it, it's not really a choice. Let's see, a sociopath or a narcopath? That's awesome. Which do I choose?
So what do you think, what do you see happening in the next whatever? Now I think it's getting down to the point where I saw some day about now. Like we might be down to 100 days or maybe even less, September, October. Yeah, it's less than that.
Yeah, it's Hillary's turn. So she'll get in no matter what happens, no matter what any of us do or vote for or whatever, it'll be her. It's her turn. She's paid her dues.
And I think just like, and again, this is why it's so frustrating. It's like you guys fall for this year after year after year. You have people, old friends and family who are even older than you in some cases. It's like, how do you still fall for this year after year after year? Oh, I know, it's because you only pay attention every 4 or 8 years. And then most of the time they're not paying attention. They're invested in it right now. I can make the analogy. It would be like if I hate sports. If I showed up every 4 years or whatever and was like, let me tell you all about the World Cup. Because I'm going to tell you what team do, and I know all about it. And people would go, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You don't pay attention to it at all. You're a fair weather fan and you're going to show up here and get all invested in it and paint your face up and act like it. But at the end of the day, I know you don't pay attention. And that's what's frustrating with the sort of, your friends and your family that it's like, this is nothing more than Coke or Pepsi or who you thought should have won on The Bachelor. Because I know the rest of those other 3 to 7 years when you're not paying attention at all.
And does it really? Oh, I have to remind you that we're not supposed to do F-bombs because of the FCC.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Sorry about that. I usually tell people and I forget, but, yeah. So, and does it really even make a difference who's in there anyway? Because they're not really the ones in charge anyway. So Obama, he could really be totally sincere about what that could be a possibility. And then they just look like, we're going to kill your whole family. So you better do this instead. Does president really matter?
No. I think it seems like with each, and because they need, so ultimately it doesn't it doesn't matter because as we can see, the agenda rolls on and it doesn't really change. And they'll all have the same advisors. So you could look and go, oh, that's hilarious. Hillary has the same advisors as Bush and lots of Homeland Security people. Oh, it's all the same neocon gangsters. Mm-hmm. No matter who the chosen one is that go round, it is interesting to watch all the stops being pulled out. Sometimes the timing is right, and you pretty much cruise to victory with a Madison Avenue, emotional campaign like Obama. And everybody was just for it, and they all voted for him, and everybody whoopee skippily do. Mm-hmm. But the previous one, you saw Bush the whole way. So what was it? It was early in the primaries or something, and I forget. Some early state where generally, as the horse race of it goes, hey, whoever wins this early state X, some of the attention and money is going to start to flow that way. Money wants to go to, a winner. It doesn't care. It just, again, wants those buddy contracts later on down the road. So Bush loses some early primary thing, and for some reason, against all political history, the money and the attention still goes to him, even though it should have gone to McCain, who won it, historically speaking. And each step of the way, all the things that were popping up that were going to prohibit Bush from winning were all plucked out of the way. So whether that's the motorcade is going to go down Elm Street one way or the other, and the teams are there and all set, and nothing is going to stop that from happening.
No, nothing.
Now with Hillary, they've got a good ringer with Donald Trump, who is meant to take the fall this time. Right. Just like Bob Dole took the fall, just like Mitt Romney took the fall, just like Dukakis, just like all the others do, all these others who sort of give it a good run and then just sort of, oh man, it looked like he kind of stumbled and fell. It was like it was a fixed race or something. So what is going to continue to be pulled out of the way for Hillary to get in? Which is, as you said, which is totally obvious. I wish I could go back to my old shows from 2008 and where I said, oh yeah, obviously they had that meeting on the plane and probably told Hillary, chill out. We're going to give it to Barry this time. We've got a sweet gig in the cabinet. You'll make a ton of money doing other stuff. And then, in 8 years, we'll probably bring you back around. The Bilderbergs have decided. Remember when they snuck away and locked the press corps on the plane? Mm-hmm. They snuck away at the Bilderberg meeting in Chantilly, Virginia. So what things now with Hillary are going to be moved out of the way and fixed and changed? Things that we never could have really, because we didn't have Facebook and Google and the overlay that is able to manipulate it. They might not have to pull any of the levers in the phony rigged machines because, like Sun Tzu, it's like, oh, the battle was already over before you guys even started fighting.
Right. Yeah. So I think, I've always thought since Trump became a candidate that it was like he's so abhorrent, like he's so hateable that she's the only choice left, even though she's hateable too. But she's not as scary hateable as him, I guess. And
well, is it? Yeah, it's sort of that her legions aren't as scary on the face of them as Trump's. Right. I think some of it comes down to too. Yeah. Basket of deplorables.
Yes. Yeah, and because he's more of a narcissist and she's more of a cool psychopath. He's more like hateable because he has that narcissistic rage where he can't control himself when people talk shit about him. He gets really upset, whereas she's like, she doesn't care. She's like, I could have you murdered in 2 seconds. Like, what do I care what you say about me? Now she doesn't have that narcissistic injury. She's just a cool, calm psychopath.
The more Ted Bundy stuff, although I guess that's a whole other conversation. But that you actually just said it. There's part of me that still thinks and wonders that Trump getting whacked in the next several weeks would be it would be the complete. So we've had a couple of years of, all these minorities getting mad and rioting and doing all that stuff, and the complete flip back on that would be if Trump got whacked, and it would be the complete rise of the super hater, so-called alt-right, it would be all that element would sort of, it would be the blank check for them to go riot, basically. I've just kind of been looking at the Purge films, especially the one that just came out called Election Year, as a little bit of a correlation and somewhat, that synchromysticism or just straight up predictive programming. Mm-hmm. It's a movie where a woman running for president is the good person and is going to do away with the purge, the yearly thing where all laws are suspended. And people have slowly realized through the course of the 3 films that it's actually about population control. And it's when the rich people go kill all the lower classes on the purge. But the new founding fathers, a very sort of new right, think that the purge is great and want to keep it going. And it's this very populist uprising that they don't say it out, but they want to keep America great. Mm-hmm. It's a thinly veiled caricature of the sort of Trump and Hillary tropes in some way. But it's basically all about people going nuts and killing each other in the streets.
Wow.
Helter Skelter style.
Nice stuff. Yeah. And well, I mean, Trump really does make Hillary look better because she's not an overt racist, a-hole out there like whipping up the crowds to punch people and just being really crass. And, she plays the game and pretends to be a decent person, better than he does.
So then what about the health thing?
Yeah, that's people are just gonna be like, oh, that's just a bunch of tinfoil hat stuff, and they'll just poo-poo it until she wins at the White House. It'll just be poo-pooed. But
what if it is actually a problem on their hands that they're suddenly going, we've groomed this whole thing for decades. The time is right, and she's gonna friggin' croak on us.
Well, I guess we don't know who's going to be the vice. I guess that'll.
Well, that's as of now, it's Tim Kaine.
Mm-hmm.
Now there was even actually just a story the other day of a former Virginia governor, is it McConnell?
Yes,
was cleared of all corruption charges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Hill Dog and Timmy are getting things done.
They are.
You can see the handshakes happening again before the big show happens. All the moves are made and all the deals are made, and you can see it in just like who gets promoted, who's moving, who's getting squashed. All the media that's moving around right now is also sort of in some ways in preparation for the next, so-called regime.
Right. Yeah, and the changes they are window dressing. They really are. They're not. None of the changes are fundamental. So, it's always let's dangle this carrot, and the carrot being the rights that you should already have because you're existing, that we took from you because we're psychopaths, and we're gonna give it back to you, so that you think you're getting something while we, keep your attention on you getting this right back that you should already have. We're going to, behind the scenes, we're going to pass we'll give you gay marriage and we'll pass TTP or whatever. That's what happens the whole way through. So
I've got clips back on the old shows too, where I was like, Obama, he'll give us weed, but everything else will probably be taken away.
Everything else. So all you'll have is weed.
And that's and that's something people in the alt media say, oh, you dumb stoners, you're falling for it, you're falling for this, marijuana they want you all dumb and docile on Monsanto weed. It's like, man, I don't think it's that simple. That's the simple power of cannabis, is that it's not that easy to control. And now that the toothpaste is getting out of the tube, yeah, of course, Monsanto, they're going to start working on all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I believe, it's my hope, that the people who have been stewards of cannabis and hemp for centuries aren't going to go like the people who are holding some tomatoes and are like, yeah, whatever, we'll sell it to Monsanto. Am I being too hopeful that marijuana won't go the way of all the other GM foods?
Oh, no, it won't. No, there's There will always be. I mean, because look how long that community has had to keep things secret. There will always be a vault of seeds that are untouched by Monsanto forever, plus eternity. You know, no matter how hard Monsanto pushes to GMO the world, and that goes with food too. There will always be a vault of seeds that are pure, because people are working on it. Lots of people that don't even know each other are working on that, because it's really obvious that has to be done.
So isn't it funny that we go through everything only to work our way back around to the simplest, most sort of earthy ways of doing things, that we all now have this epiphany that maybe natural foods and way of life and simple living and not taking part, maybe this is the way to go. We had to go through all the horrible things to come back and reach that sort of simple, fundamental conclusion that, again, our grandparents and previous generations all knew.
Yeah. And really, we have a new appreciation for it, that's for sure. I mean, I work my butt off just trying to grow food and learn more about what I can forage. I've upped my foraging skills like quite a bit over the last year. And my big hashtag now is eat weeds, because they're free and they grow everywhere, and they have all the nutrients that's lacking in our highly processed food chain. So that's why Roundup, that's why Monsanto wants to kill them too, because you know, it's everything that you need. So stop eating, start growing your own food, start growing what wants to grow where you live. That's the hugest revelation that I had this year was I started going out picking weeds to eat, and I looked around me and I was like, there's more weeds here that I could ever possibly eat. Like, this is the physical experience of the abundance of the earth and how there's enough for us provided daily. You know,
as the years have gone by, we've now been using there's a service that's sort of like a CSA here in Oregon and in the Portland metro area. Basically, it's called Organics to You, and it's a home delivery of local in-season organic produce. And what's so fun about it is what comes in is what is in season, is what is being harvested. So we've been learning as the years go by of what's in season, what's coming out. Oh, beets are apparently always in season here in Oregon. To always figure out what to do with them.
Have you ever done beet greens?
A little bit, because we also, we also have a juicer and are making broth and trying to do a lot more in our just little tiny kitchen. We're almost at the point where we need a surplus, fridge just to have some extra storage space.
Yeah. Yeah. Beet greens, like just sauteed are really, really good. Actually, anything sauteed in butter is good.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, with some butter and garlic, I'm there.
Anything. That's the same with the weeds. That's what I do with all the weeds. I just fry them up in some grass-fed butter and I'm good to go. So, yeah.
Well, that's why they call marijuana weed, because it grows so well and it grows everywhere.
Yeah, and it is uncontrollable like weeds. You can't.
So I think if the marijuana conspiracy gets a bunch of people out of prison and doesn't ruin people's lives for using a plant and starts to roll away all of that. I love seeing the stories here in Oregon of former weed dogs now pretty much out of work. They're going to go do something else. They used to work for the Oregon police, but now, like, oh, that's awesome. That dog now gets to go sort of do something else. He gets another sort of lease on life, if you will.
Yeah.
Leash. Yeah.
So what do you think? I mean, since obviously, cannabis should totally be legal. What do you think do you think all drugs should be legal and it should be more of a health issue than like a criminal justice issue, like a public? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, again, just as you said, whatever sovereign, consenting adult humans want to put up on them is their business. Mm-hmm. The only problem in puritanical America, they could never flip that switch overnight. Right. Because there's been so many generations of lies and propaganda that people probably would go nutso and do all and again, maybe that's maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the people who would go nuts and kill themselves on drugs, well, maybe that's a great thing. We may have all that happen. Now you're either sort of for freedom or not for it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's ugly and painful, but that's what the fundamental battle is. That's why Huxley could tap into that.
I think people are going crazy and drinking and drugging themselves to death. I mean, they're already doing that.
That's true.
The legality of it really doesn't factor into people's decision making. I don't think when they decide to do something, that's because they want to do it. It's not.
There is, in some ways, there is. I was, I was out drinking with a friend a couple Fridays ago, and I think we were outside. I think he was smoking a cigarette, and I was just smoking a one-hitter. And just sort of thinking of at the same moment it feels like,
go ahead.
And that we know the police state is here, it's not coming, the sort of the overlay is all there, that at just the same moment it feels like the total lockdown is coming, at the same moment it almost feels like you can kind of do whatever you want in a little bit of ways. Most police stations, this is that weird, double side. They're all being militarized, but they're also totally have more than they can ever do and are poorly funded. And lots of cities have started to, Portland decriminalized a lot of things a long time ago. There's this huge list of, it's like, if you call the cops for that, we probably totally won't come because we don't have time for any of that petty junk anymore. So there's a little bit of a feeling of standing out on the sidewalk and being like, it sure kind of feels like I can do what I want.
Right.
Just, that's always that phony religious argument. Oh, well, if there weren't, laws or the 10 Commandments or all those things, I would just be out stealing and killing people. That's the only reason I'm not doing it.
That's what controls my urge to do so is the law, right?
Bad, bad people, quote unquote, or bad things are going to happen regardless of the law, as they have already been. So it's just another setup to get people rich, and it's another prohibition that keeps a bunch of poor people down. So what's the joke of those, if you ain't got the capital, you get the punishment.
Right. It's true. It's absolutely true. The creek that runs through our property is a historic site where during the alcohol prohibition, that was the waterway where the moonshine was delivered down, was Back Creek. And I don't know, I'm thinking they should use it again.
Isn't now, because when I was still living in West Virginia, and I worked at a bar for a few years, as, the craft brewing thing was happening, and we had beer from West Virginia and Maryland and Virginia breweries, but there was this cap on alcohol. West Virginia still had a very low legal limit on how much alcohol a beer could have in it. And it was, I forget, it was a 4.5 or 5. It was a pretty low level. So there were beers that, that were across the street that we couldn't legally sell. They were in Maryland. Well, Maryland had a higher volume, law. They've changed the law since I've left, and now it's a higher, alcohol volume. They let loose a little bit on craft brewing, which again is another whole way of politicians give a bunch of lip service to small businesses. But when the rubber hits the road, they do everything they can to make it difficult, especially if you're dealing in beer or some sort of vice that's going to people get uppity about. But I think there's now some legal moonshine distilling in West Virginia. The last time I was there and we went to the liquor store, it's there on a shelf with a fancy label.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big thing in this area, actually. When we first moved in the neighborhood, we live in a very rednecky area. We were we were welcomed to the neighborhood with an invite for slow cooked bear meat and moonshine.
Woo!
Yeah, party time. So we thanked them, but we didn't go. I did want to try the bear meat, but
yeah, I've never had bear meat.
Yeah.
I may be a West Virginia boy, but that's the thing. So growing up, parents were fairly Baptist and religious, but we had a huge garden. Mom made some of our clothes. Like, we actually did a lot of the things that now we're talking about going, oh man, I need a sewing machine, or we need to start growing more food. These things, again, that our, and even in some cases our parents and grandparents all did, and they had victory gardens. Mm-hmm. So it's funny. I was thinking about this as we were sort of getting ready for the show today, because I was doing domestic kitchen work. Here's my funny flip with here's my sort of, Cassie and I, my longtime partner, she and I have been together for 15 years. We met in Shepherdstown going to college.
Aw.
And are engaged and are probably going to get married pretty soon. And just do it quickly.
Let's get it done.
Just get it done for me. It's like, you can't all come. We can't do it everywhere. It's over.
That's what we did.
My funny, our role reversals in some way. She's out working extra shifts out at her gig with like the public, and there's gear and there's stuff. But actually, she's at a comic book convention right now in Portland. And I was back here doing some kitchen and doing some domestic work. But I was thinking, if, all the World War II propaganda, and I mean, it's propaganda, but you look at some of not the hateful stuff, but the stuff about your home and all the things to do in your home. Mm-hmm. If all of that stuff, and they're in some ways right, they needed it for the effort. Things weren't as massively industrialized as they are now. That's why it was sort of the post-World War II boom. All those things you saved meant something. All the stuff you did at home meant something. Mm-hmm. And if all of that stuff was actually powerful enough to win a war, either psychologically or physically, those are some of the tools now that you go, oh, canning, gardening, making our own food, not taking part in this stuff, removing your consent and your participation from every way possible. And that we're not necessarily out bullhorning and sort of playing that paradigm with cops who don't care about what you're bullhorning about, mm-hmm. and people who are just trying to commute back from some job that they're pissed off about having to do. You're going to make them mad. And there was actually a big protest broke out here in Portland yesterday about the Dakota Access Pipeline. And it wasn't so much big as it was well-timed. It was, Friday at 5 in the downtown area. So it was cluster F.
Oh boy.
But I was surprised that it broke out that quickly. So that's in relation to what we were talking about yesterday with the latest moves of is it or isn't it on or off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think they are definitely trying to take steam out of the movement. Because it's something that they don't understand. They haven't been able to turn them into thugs. It's not working.
So it seems like, assuming it all goes forward, they do some debates, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be close. Hillary's going to win. There'll probably be election chicanery in certain places, but again, it's already set and done. As it's going by, and now we know, Think Progress, one of the kind of liberal blogs, I think blew it out of proportion to say Alex Jones is advising Donald Trump as though he's sort of on the payroll and is there and inviting and meeting every day. Then you look at the story and it kind of says, well, they've met before and they've talked about some stuff. But it's hard, doing the daily briefing or anything. But that's still important because it's been obvious as this last year has gone by. We're all looking at the news, and whether it was Drudge or Fox or Bright, all of those places are now using InfoWars news. And I've been saying a bunch that it's like mainstream culture ate conspiracy culture, and it's now being sort of regurgitated and sold back out. And all our shows and all our news and everything is actually conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's one of the most popular, growth sectors of the entertainment world.
Yes, it is.
So
and so easily debunkable, too.
I guess all I'm kind of getting at, is it possible that all of the sort of what the main line would consider conspiracy theorists, that CIA made weaponized term that everybody runs with and uses, that all the conspiracy theorists and all the truthers and the birthers and the weirdos, they're all for Trump, and that this will be the one kind of big, and they'll all be wiped out in one fell swoop, just by the win of Hillary will kind of be the win of social justice warriors over the hateful, that is what sort of the game will be symbolized as. So again, just as we're talking about, it's all, the powers that shouldn't be get their cronies in spot because they're playing chess. Meanwhile, checkers for the dummies, they know that it sets the psychological tone. So whether it is Hillary or by some, I would think, crazy move, Trump, or like I said, if he gets whacked, the psychological move of what the populace is going to do, what the masses of asses are going to do. And again, they say the real action is in the reaction. So the gangsters are going to keep doing their thing and running their game that we'll figure out later on as it sort of unveils itself. But the game for the dummies is going to be fighting over R&D.
Right. Yeah, when they've backed both sides, so it really doesn't matter, too, That's the other funny thing. It's a lot of wasted energy. And really, I mean, if you look at what day it is, it's the 10th of September, right? Today should be the day you throw away your TV, because you don't want to be involved in their little death cult reenactment tomorrow. You just don't want any type of involvement in it. 'Cause it'll suck your soul dry. Throw it away.
Well, I'm bad. I'm glad you actually finally, because even when we set up this interview weeks ago, it was sort of like, hey, let's do 9/10. That'll be the day before 9/11. At least, we'll know there'll be, heightened tensions, as it always sort of gets cranked up. And I talked about on my show yesterday, the stupid mattress place with the offensive 9/11 commercial, the kids that dressed up as the towers at a Comic-Con, and the stand of like Coke at the Walmart. That's what passes for 9/11 news now, 15 years later. And I'm guilty of it myself. That's what I'm talking about. Is this is where we are in 15 years? Because now we have huge swaths of people who barely know what it is, let alone have an emotional reaction to it or from it, let alone know all the things that changed from that moment on, and that it continues to be the blank check. So huge props to homie James Corbett. The videos he put out all this week of the 9/11 suspects. He brings it right back to the thing we all forgot about and should have been discussing all along.
The heist. Yeah.
I was kind of surprised one of them he had in there was Bob Baer. I'd be curious because it feels like that guy, I instantly looked him up on Twitter because I was going to tag him and be like, what do you say to this?
Nice.
That's what's interesting about all these people. They've all got Twitter accounts. They've all, for the most part, are accessible public figures in some way. It's weird. I don't know. So it's hard, as time goes on. It's like, oh, now you know what we are? Are we just the nutters who were talking about JFK in the mid to late 70s?
Yeah.
Dude, you guys are talking about JFK still? I mean, what about Nixon? What about Vietnam? What about the oil embargo? What about all this Iran stuff? Like, yeah, all that stuff is based on JFK. It's the fundamental event for everything that we're still doing. And to try and again, scream at the rooftops about it. But at this point, how often really, and again, that's why I think it's important, so good, the work that James does, especially around the 9/11 anniversaries.
Yeah, he's the man. Absolutely. And it's like people don't want to mention it, but at the same time they do, because it's just right out there. And so, like you said, these examples of, this weird stuff that passes as 9/11 news. Well, meanwhile, they have this big memorial that they brought all of the, like ashes and remains or whatever back to. Why did they do that? There's no news about the family going, why are you doing that? You don't bring remains back to the site of the trauma, to lay people to rest. But they're all...
That's the thing. It's like they're doing... If you didn't know better, you'd think they were pulling off weird occult rituals.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if you didn't know better. If you were just guessing and bullshitting around,
Hey, there is one other piece of 9/11 news I forgot about, and whether or not this will turn into a good thing or if it's limited hangout or who knows what. The House okays bill to let 9/11 families sue Saudi Arabia. So that was another, that happened late yesterday as well. So Fridays, in the media, that's what they call dumping day.
Yeah.
So all kinds of things kind of fall out on Friday or over the weekend.
Interesting. We won't attack we will attack Baghdad instead, but 15 years later we'll let people sue you. Like money means anything to them. It just
Isn't that, but they know it means something to us.
Right.
And especially, and of course it would if you had your family destroyed. You would want some money. That's what's tough. That's what's tough about things. That's why it's hard to get mad at people who aren't paying better attention. Because they have, there's all these layers of kind of work to go through. And I realize, I was listening to Jello Biafra and Dead Kennedys and punk rock and stuff in the late 80s and early 90s. So I realized I was kind of radicalized at a pretty early age, but kind of realized, I don't know, that there was a better way to go about it. And that was something that Jello Biafra talked about. It's like, don't act like punk rock is your little costume that you put on and you do this thing. It's like, it is what you are. And that's something I think I've tried to always kind of keep. So that's, for me, I think why, being in alternative media is kind of what I've always done. And I've joked, it's like the main, I didn't go to the mainstream. The mainstream kind of came to us. Looks like we were saying earlier. All the work the alternative media did in the Audies is now what's being kind of spat back out.
It's true. Absolutely. As though they did the work.
It's I guess I was just going to say it's more powerful to just sort of not take part in the system and work your way, and as Richard Grove says, learn your way forward, than to sort of go, oh well, I've got to, here's how I look and dress and do my hair, and so you'll know that I'm into this or that. I love just wearing a white t-shirt and blue jeans and knock off, Chuck Taylors, and just sort of being kind of nondescript. And for me, that's always been a much more subversive way of like, you had no idea I was going to do that stuff to you.
You gonna stick around for a second?
Yeah, do you have got other folks dropping in?
Yeah, we're gonna bring Mikey BlueHair in here.
Hey, I know that guy.
Cool.
Let me stick around for just a little bit more.
All right, few minutes. Welcome back to The Bridge with Kira. It's the second hour on the 10th of September, 2016. And my guest today is James Evan Pilato. Welcome back.
Thanks so much. Thanks for letting me run my mouth so much.
Yeah, it's fun. I was going to say, I don't really have the choice of being nondescript. It's a good choice to have, but it's one that has not been available to me in my life. I'm 6'1" and female, and I have gigantic boobs, so people notice me, and they can't help it.
All right.
So, but I would sometime like to try being nondescript.
Well, and again, there's we all have to recognize privileges that we do have. I'm lucky. I'm a cute white guy, and that I realize has probably let me get away with some things. Never really had much problem with the police. Except for that time I was arrested in Maryland.
Yeah, I've never had much problem with them. I'm just like, hey, big boy, how are ya? That's why I drive when we go to the powwow. So, speaking of powwows, let's see if Mike BlueHair is available to join us in our shit talk conversation here. He actually went to to Cannonball. He was there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. You there, Mike? No? Yes? Maybe? Oh, it's still ringing, I think. Okay.
I first met Mike when he was doing some video stuff for Alex Ansary, who did a show called Outside the Box, who is still around, who still makes media. He's pretty much, I think, been kind of living off the grid and just uploads YouTube videos of, here I am in my place in Colorado. I think he's slowly, becoming more and more self-sufficient and going through that battle. But Mike's also doing video stuff for Ground Zero, Clyde Lewis, who I would actually go on to work for in commercial radio years later.
Wow. Are you there, Mike? I don't hear him. We don't hear you, Mike. It looks like you're on, but we don't hear you. Maybe he'll chime in there.
Pop in.
Hey.
Well, I reshared the other day a video where we, on the 9th anniversary of 9/11 in 2010, Mohawk Mike and me and Clyde Lewis and Alex Ansary and a bunch of other people, we burnt the 9/11 Commission report. This was the year that, is his name Terry Jones, the guy that was going to burn the Quran, and that was what passed for 9/11 news that year. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
So we did a publicity stunt where we sent out press releases to all the local news places and said, this is a publicity stunt because burning books is stupid, but we're going to burn the 9/11 Commission report. So its anniversary, we can talk about the events of 9/11 and not some new made-up controversy that has nothing to do with what we found. So only one news station came out, and they actually covered our event, talked to us, and they included us on their 5-minute, 9/11 package of news coverage that had the world news, that had, of course, the events in D.C. and New York. But all of that, they actually aired on the 9/11 anniversary. I have it up on my YouTube channel, and the whole reason I got it was because Mike got it to me on VHS.
Wow. I'm asking him right now which one he wants to be called on. Which one? Okay.
Well, you're lucky. I'll just run out of my mouth while you do.
Yeah, it's good. It's a real good thing. So he'll get back to me here. I tried both and both didn't work. His phone or his Skype.
And I don't have a ton of time left, actually, but if I could, I would just give my quick horror pitch. Can I flog my...
Absolutely, please.
I've got some snake oil and some pills, and I don't have any of that stuff. It took 10 years of doing Media Monarchy. So the very first post on the first website, MediaMonarchy.blogspot.com, was the original site, went up on September 11th, 2005. And in those previous few years, I had gotten into...
Go ahead. Sorry.
Hello. I had gotten into 9/11 research and was just kind of doing it privately on my own.
Hello.
Hey. We do have Mike BlueHair here. Hey.
Hi, Kira.
Hi. Welcome to the party. I have James Evan Pilato here, and he was telling us the story of the evolution of his media empire.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm a big fan of James's work. I've been watching it for a long time. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. It's good to hear you. It's fun to meet up in a random different place. I was telling Kira about, I first met you a decade ago when you were doing video work here in Portland for Clyde and Alex, and that you actually got me the video of the Coin 6 when they came out and covered our 9/11 protest.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that. I haven't been on radio with you since we were on Clyde's show, It was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah. Remember his anti-police state show that you and Alex Entry and I were on?
Yep. And that was even back now at the old studios, so they don't even do the show there anymore.
Yep. Been doing a lot of personal and media evolving since then myself, doing the cop watching and whatnot.
And you were on the scene in North Dakota?
Oh, yes, there was. I was out there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, so the timeline of those events are pretty interesting, I think, to me. So you have in April, the Sacred Stone camp gets established, and then round about, I guess, the beginning of August, they put out a call for moccasins on the ground. We need you. And this camp, the Sacred Stone camp, is like a prayer camp. They were really focused on, we want to get this thing done more in a spirit. Even though they were camped out there where they were digging, they wanted to get it kind of done on the spiritual level there. So they put out the call and people started showing up first, second week of August. And then the first direct action happened on the 15th of August. And that was spur of the moment, where Oompa Noompa and his daughter Tashina Sapawin, and there were other adults present that were like, hey, let's get these younger adults to jump over the fence, women, jump over the fence and just push their way to the river and stop the construction. So that was the first time it was stopped, and we interviewed her on the 20th, Tashina, and she told her story about that. And so after they jumped over and they stopped the construction, Chase Iron Eyes of Last Real Indians was there, saw that, cut the fence, and then led a bunch of people through that fence to go after who were inspired by the women. And then that's where you got all the footage from Unicorn Riot of the people standing in front of the bulldozers and what have you. So then on, I think it was like the 30th or the 31st, it was that Wednesday where the world fell in love with Happy Dale, American Horse Jr., who, attached himself to the digger. And Mike BlueHair got fantastic footage of that. But we also, didn't realize that we were witnessing the Red Warrior group sort of take over the event with this planned direct action. So Red Warriors basically a reinvention of Last Real Indians, which is a reinvention, and Last Real Indians is a reinvention of AIM. So they're all kind of in that same oriented camp. And the established group there, Sacred Stone, really doesn't want these more in-your-face direct actions. They want to do things legally. They want to. It looks like we lost Mike for a second. They want to. They want to. They want to do it the way they've been shown. So, with this latest decision, it looks like the tribe and the more established people that were already there are sort of pushing, let's not do this direct action stuff anymore. Let's see where we go with the legal stuff and the prayer stuff. So that's sort of like the inside scoop on that. Let me try to call him again. And that's what you're not going to see in the alternative media. You're not going to see it in the native media. You're just going to get it from people who are on scene and who know what's going on.
And that's probably true for everything. So much even of what we do is we're all just reading and pulling other stories from other places.
Right.
Actually go and see.
And I try to get the scoop from people who are there rather than rehashing. But I mean, you have to rehash to a certain degree. Uh-oh.
You've reached Mike BlueHair from.
Please call. Hey, I was just gonna
finish your story. Yeah. Let
me wrap up my stuff and I'll get out. But actually, are you? Sorry.
Oh, he's calling me on my phone. All right.
On your phone?
Yeah. Here, I'll mute my mic, and then you go ahead and finish your.
I'll do my wrap up. All I was basically saying is it sort of took 10 years of doing Media Monarchy
Let me call you
before it could reach the point where I felt like I could really kind of ask for
through Skype. Okay.
real money and support. So the long and short of it was I worked in a commercial radio station for 3 years, realized kind of rather be doing it myself, and that the window was perfect, and that the blessing has been getting to hook up with someone like James Corbett, who's exploded over the years. And so I get the gift of attention I probably wouldn't have had by myself by being able to do New World Next Week with James. So the gift of that extra, the co-hosting, the work that we do together, that attention let me say, well, now's probably the last best time I could really say, I want to make Media Monarchy my job. So I quit my radio station job summer 2015, sort of relaunched Media Monarchy 2.0, if you will, and did a lot of behind-the-scenes work with the websites and server space and kind of made it all legit-like. And as soon as it turned 2016, in January, I started doing a daily morning show, Monday through Friday, and I also do a daily DJ set. So I do an hour-long live news broadcast at 9 a.m. Pacific time via my own website on MediaMonarchy.com/listen, and anybody can hit that up and listen. And actually, Jared, who runs Radio Confluence, who's one of the places that's simulcasting this right now, or were, and we thank him, he simulcasts all the Media Monarchy live stuff. So I do a news show and a music show Monday through Friday, and the amount of news and the amount of new media and exciting new things to discuss that have been able to sort of grow my own morning show, even over the course of now just 8-9 months, has been such an amazing growth, and that I know I'm on the right path. And so being able to do that and kind of make that my job, I'm basically trying to do it Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and I work on Media Monarchy as though I were, trying to go to work somewhere else, except, that was the hardest part about being in a commercial station, because one, it's super easy. I can run my mouth and talk about music till the cows come home. They love to let me do that for a small amount of money, while I also was the producer and the board op and the co-host and doing, 5 jobs. But everything I make there, it all goes to them. Yeah, I get a paycheck, but all sort of the glory and everything you create, like that station owns all that stuff. And you just kind of work there until they think, yeah, you sound old. You're fired. Yeah, but my contract, yeah, we'll buy it out. It's brutal. So I love being able to basically do it myself and feel sort of the joy of building it myself with people I've known for a long time, people I've known digitally for a long time, and being able to sort of do that. And so that's what I am pretty much doing, day in, day out. You got 2 Media Monarchy broadcasts a day. So the morning news show and a music show. Because I've been a DJ for a long time. I think the funny part is a lot of the people that do alternative media never made media before. And that's such a powerful thing. And that's what's so great about even the community at Radio Confluence. You have a bunch of people who never made radio shows before. They never did much of this stuff before, but are into news and are into music and into community. And they're all doing it and kind of trying it out for some of the first times, or maybe getting back into doing it. And people are, again, sort of building it themselves, building their own radio stations. That to me has been so exciting and so much fun. And that it's fun to have people who only know me from, New World Next Week to maybe listen to some of the shows and go, oh, you're like a radio guy. You're like a DJ guy. Wow, you know a lot about music. It's sort of that extra layer, I think, that people can discover. And I realize, that's in some ways going to be a select audience of alternative media people who might be going like, I don't give a crap about your stupid music. But there's a whole other swath of people who rather like the music. And that's another way to sort of bring people in and go, oh, wow, this new music is awesome. And that's always been, I've only ever wanted to share media with people. It's pretty much what I've always done. Fortunately, the military invented this crazy thing, and I can share with all kinds of people what I've always been doing sort of on my own. I'm now, I'm in a room with my books and records and media, and I'm able to sort of, I don't know, it's just a natural place for me, and it just sort of feels right, and it's the kind of the right thing at the right place at the right time, and I'm lucky to be able to be doing it right now.
I'm really happy for you. I'm kind of feel like a little bit of echo here, but that's where I want to get to, where the food, growing my own food and doing radio is my thing, and I don't have to, do the secretarial drag thing to to pay the other bills. I would love to do that. So, and I never knew that I would do radio ever. It was just one day I discovered that my doctors had been messing with me and telling me I had fibromyalgia when I really had celiac disease my whole life. And I said, you know what? This has probably happened to a lot of other people. Might want to share the things I've learned about this. And so, and then also I'm a psychopath magnet. So, and a narcissist magnet. So I figured, well, I've learned some strategies on how to, deal with that and get the cluster Bs cleared away. So I could share that. And then I'm just basically, somebody who has a high IQ and know where to use it, because they won't let me use it at work. That's for sure. Because you can't have a high IQ and big boobs. Those don't go together. What do you mean?
It's it is a little odd, because of course I had, initially a couple of people were like, hey, watch, when I first just sort of left the radio job in the summer of 2015, and I pretty much spent, July and August, the rest of that summer, having a good time in the summer, and had, somebody be like, now careful, if you don't work too long, you'll never want to go to work again. I knew that wasn't going to be the case, because I knew what I was going to be working on. It just wasn't something I was going to be able to sort of explain to him. It's funny. The easiest thing is anymore, I should just be like, I run a home radio station. Like I should just stop there like, well, I did, this media and it was after 9/11 and blah, blah, blah. I should be like, I run a radio station myself. It's just going to be the simplest way to do it. And that's in some ways where, I kind of talked about this sort of the Hillary movement will be able to kill all conspiracies in one fell swoop. It's sort of like any of those people who believed in any of that junk, you guys all just got beat. And now you're done and will no longer even act like we're going to tolerate any of your stupid ideas.
Yeah, I don't think that'll work. The veil's lifting, and regardless of what they do.
Kind of push it'll be the push and the pushback in the culture war.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say, I think the more we create our own things, whether that's gardens or radio stations or zines or bands or any of that stuff in our, local community or sort of our digital community, the more we create our own thing, the less we're tied and tethered to these things that are going to kind of come and go. That's what's been really frustrating, seeing people I've sort of, known in the alternative media for a long time hop on the Trump train. And I've never, had the time to ask all these kind of different people to be like, are you really into this? Because if you would say, oh, I'm into it just for the complete train wreck of it all, because I think it'll wreck the entire system. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's at least... I can get down with that. At least now I know why you're doing it, because you think it'll be the thing to wreck everything.
Yeah.
But to have people who I know in the alternative media, it's like all they want, what he's really pushing is more military, like more homeland security, more wall. It's all the things I thought lots of people in the alternative media didn't want. And that's when you realize, oh, there's a box inside the box inside the box to get out of.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of co-opted scenes and memes. And that's why, I realized early on, even before 9/11 or any of this stuff, I was like, I'm never going to be in any groups.
Yeah.
I'm never going to call myself a blankist.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm a card-carrying member of this or that. It's like, that's just bad scene. So that's what comes from, growing up in a small town where all you see is sort of football and religion.
Yeah.
Like, I want to not join any of those clubs.
They're not for me. I don't fit into those clubs at all. Yeah. Yeah. Scary stuff. And even the gun club that is my neighborhood, nonstop, target practice day and night. I could probably beat them all at target practice, but I don't sit out there every day and shoot a gun all day long. Like I have better things to do with my time. And, like watching TV, it's amazing what that does when you get rid of that whole suck in your life, the time suck, the energy suck, the thinking of things that go on in it suck. It's amazing how much time it frees up. And
I think more that's why I continually bring more music into what I do, because it's what I had always done. So I ran, and actually you should, if you ever get a chance, to roll over to Shepherdstown, West Virginia. That's the college town. I lived for 10 years. I ran the radio station there, 89.7 WSHC. Some of the most difficult call letters to spit out, SHC, for Shepherd College. It used to be Shepherd College. It's actually a university now, but it's a cool little college town. You could go have a great meal and check out some really historic. It's the oldest town in West Virginia. But that was where I was a DJ at the radio station starting in 95. By the year 2000, I was running the programming, picking the heavy rotation, doing all the stuff. So did all of that, and that was a lot of my radio training. And then when I moved out to Portland, I realized I wasn't going to be able to get a job lickety-split at a different radio station. And luckily, the way it turned out, I actually got a job at what was a cool, kind of local grocery store chain. And then I got to see sort of the food revolution happen with, the sort of, organics 2.0 and all of the changes as the economy crashed. So I worked at this grocery store from 2006 to 2012, all the while doing, it was basically grocery boy by day, media monarchy by night. And those were the years where I sort of built up what media monarchy was. And again, this was the waning years of the Bush years into Obama, and then doing, New World Next Week, all the while I was working at this grocery store. So it was great to learn it's sort of, you didn't realize it so much at the moment, and later you go, oh, I saw all those changes happen, and I saw all those companies getting gobbled up, and I saw the move of organics and non-GMO and all that stuff kind of coming to a head on the grocery store shelf. I mean, that is, in a lot of ways, that is a sort of ground zero of, American life and economy, and you can judge a lot of what is going down by what's happening in that kind of grocery store space.
That's where Food World Order comes from, is your grocery boy by day.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's where I coined that phrase, Food World Order, and that became, an area in the media monarchy kingdom, as I call it, of interest. Because there's always so many different things. This is like when I used to play in bands. It was like, I don't want to be in one band. I want to be in like 6 bands, because I don't want to just play this one style of music. I have all these other interests. So that was sort of the way to create these different areas within media monarchy. And now, as the technology has changed, we first really utilized it well starting a few years back with New World Next Week. So the show that I do with James Corbett, and we've been doing it since 2009. It's funny, the things that end up being your signature thing. It's the stuff you never sort of plan or sort of intend. the things we sweat and work, and whether that's art or creating, all that stuff, you blood, sweat, and tears, and you go, look, everybody. And they go, meh. But the thing you sort of just did naturally that you couldn't even recount how it came together, that's the thing that people are going to be blown away about. Mm-hmm, so maybe it does have that authenticity and that organic, if you will, feel to it.
Well, I find that the stuff that I'm most proud of, you get the least amount of hits on it, but the stuff that you're like, it's just like everybody just loves it. They're like, woo!
Yeah, that's in some, that's always I think that's probably what keeps lots of people working forward in all the things they do, because you're trying to find the middle ground of those things. How can I do my art that I like to do that then everybody's happy and it works well for both sides? I think that's the constant kind of battle looking forward. But I think all I was kind of saying is, I had a long background in radio, and then I went to, so if you've ever heard of Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis, he's a radio host. He's originally from Utah. That's where he started doing Ground Zero. He just started doing it. It's funny. Ground Zero started in 95. That's also when I started to do college radio. Clyde is a few years older than me, but we have a funny, kind of similar path and some similar interests in, punk rock and Negative Land and old sci-fi movies and all that kind of stuff. But he was a radio host here in Portland, and his show got picked up nationally because, as I told you, conspiracy stuff is popular. If it's packageable enough, totally put it on TV or on the radio because they know people are interested. They know the internet kicked their ass. So that's why mainstream TV and radio have to be like the internet now. That's all you look at as stuff is they're getting it off the internet. I hate having to look at, try to look at what's going on in my own city, and they're carrying stupid news stories that don't affect my life. I'll look at it and you'll see some horrible story and go, oh, that's awful. Oh, wait, that's in Florida. You're just carrying it because it's clickable media and you don't really care. It's like they want to be the internet. So I worked at commercial radio station for 3 years. I worked with Clyde for about a year and a half. And then for the other year and a half, I was the co-host on this morning show on a rock station.
Very fun.
And again, realized as I started to basically pull away, because I realized pretty much my reputation was going to be ruined. Because it wouldn't be long before it would be, is that the media monarchy guy shilling, stupid products? And because that's the dumb stuff you have to do when you get, when you're on a commercial morning. I still look back at the station and see, it's like, oh my God, he's at the car dealership doing the thing. I hate all of that stuff. I don't drive. I've never owned a car. I don't want to have anything to do with any of that crap. So it was very easy for me to kind of go, oh, I actually have the upper hand here. The internet ate your lunch, and now you're lucky you've got an authentic person who not only knows all the media, but knows how to push all the buttons and can run his mouth while doing it all. Mm-hmm. They were going to be more than happy to let me almost be hip. Yeah, do your hipster curmudgeon thing. Be mad about stuff. They were going to be more than happy to let me be me because they realize they can't invent and they can't consult. They can't create and cast an authentic person. I'm good at doing it because it's what I've always done. I was a little kid in my room playing records. So I don't have to fake it. And I could always, of course, you could always be better at all the things. But I realized they needed me more than I needed them. The only parts they win on is that they are the bigger structure. They get the concert tickets and they get the publicists that call to set up, the actors and the stuff who have things to promote, whether that's books or any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. I basically worked there, figured out I could do it on my own, left and kind of took some of the contacts, and I'm just going to build it myself because I sort of like there's no trick to it now. It's like, oh, I know how this all works. I know who you have to call to get an interview with that cool author.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of, I figured out how the mainstream does their thing. You still call some of the same people, but you can have way better content. So I guess that's all of this is to basically say I've hopefully kind of made and now positioned Media Monarchy that I'm not so devoted to movement A or candidate B so that when that inevitably fails or fades, I go with it.
Right.
I've hopefully made a thing to where, no, those trends and those things are going to move and we'll talk about them, but we're sort of authentic enough and we've put it all on the table now for 10 years that I haven't changed, that that I've never lied to you about this or that. So that it can kind of weather those storms. I mean, look, comedians, they really took to podcasting first. They're some of the most culturally important people. I would argue that the podcasters, whether that's Mark Maron or any of them, the excellent, the pros, because they're comedians. That's what they do. They are the new sort of nirvana. They are the cultural change that kind of happened. And in some ways, we're all part of that in all our little different ancillary, organic, connected ways. So isn't that, I think, kind of the most powerful thing is realizing sort of that decentralized bit. Hell, maybe an EMP is going to hit and we're not going to be able to all communicate all over the world for a while. But I kind of I almost see a more community / kind of nomadic future for America anyway.
Yeah.
And that's a radio station, but it'll just be in your town. It'll be your low power FM station.
Yeah. I think that the government is definitely planning for the grid to go down. So that people should make some plans regarding that if you can afford to. And myself, I live on the other side of the digital divide. So my show is a road show. I'm doing this in a parking lot because I can't do it at my house because the price I pay for living in the woods is that I don't get internet that I can actually use. So my only, and I'm putting these little air quotes around it, choice for internet in the woods, because when the government and their corporations get together and decide who's going to be over the barrel when it comes to internet, it's always rural America every single time. And because we can't defend ourselves. There's not enough of us. And, it's also, I think it's also part of, Agenda 21. So the price, they want people to keep moving into the towns and the cities, and so they're easily controlled. So you can't get internet out there in the woods where you're growing your own food and, creating a sanctuary for birds and animals. You can't get internet out there. It's like, okay, well, I will use my iPhone hotspot and I'll do it in a parking lot where I can get a signal because I'm going to keep doing it. Because obviously my voice is not supposed to be heard in this whole, conversation. So that's why I'm going to be loud about it. And, cause I'm not supposed to be heard.
Well, I've always kind of treated the internet in some ways like it could go away tomorrow. So much in like how some of us may have acted when all kinds of file sharing and movies and music and all kinds of stuff was suddenly available. You grabbed a bunch of it because you knew it wasn't going to be there forever. Now, in my defense, in the Napster heyday, I was into getting like bootlegs and things that weren't actually commercially available. So I was never like, I'm not really robbing from Bell and Sebastian. This is a bootleg they've never released anyway. I've already bought all their other albums. That's how for me as a hardcore music fan, again, the sort of questions that pop up from time to time. It's like, oh, I'm, in some ways immune to that. That's been a lot of sort of, hey, I just make my own radio station. Because you get lots of questions from people like, oh, you're allowed to do that? Can you play that song? It's like, yep, sure can. Because I just did. And I've done nothing but ever, promote bands and link to their work and support them. And I go see them when they come to town. It's sort of like, okay, I might not give money to BMI and ASCAP, but I've given more promotion. It's just sort of, it's like, well, it's part of what I do in my work.
And they don't even have to send you stuff, but they probably do.
No, yeah, it's both.
Yeah.
And again, that's a lot of what's, people ask about music and information and all that stuff. It's like, people want their information to get out. They hope you'll talk about their little bit of information, whether it's an article or a song.
And if they don't, there's something wrong there. There's something weird. Why are you sharing it if you don't want it to be shared? Like, I don't know. Don't understand that.
I guess, getting philosophical about media monarchy, but it is sort of, for better or worse, it is me in a lot of ways. It is the sort of culmination and creation of all the things I've been interested in and wanted to do anyway, whether that was news or music or art, religion, any of the different things. And that sort of creating that, again, is maybe that's also like comedians said. And I was class clown in school. Voted class clown, class of 95.
I was the class nonconformist.
We did not have that designation. But how comedians say, well, it was in some way like a shell. You're able to use that as sort of your armor for the world. And I realized early on that it was like, oh, media is kind of my armor against the world in some way. And that as the years went by, I realized not only can it sort of be that, and that can be detrimental, to be sure, but to be involved in the creation of it. Just like you said, well, hell, maybe it'll get to the point where we all have to have our own little guardian drones. I realized, oh, if I have my own media armor, that's how I can sort of do whatever I want. And again, to go back to music analogies, there's a book called Our Band Could Be Your Life. And it's sort of all about the, punk rock / alternative scene of the 70s, 80s, 90s that turned into something where, and that's what the punk kind of reaction of Led Zeppelin and Elvis and all that stuff was in the first place. It's like, it doesn't have to be this huge monolithic corporate funded thing. You can do it yourself.
Exactly.
That's always been a huge inspiration for me, was from that music scene to be able to do the same thing now with alternative media, and that I was able to sort of make my own band, as it were, and call it Media Monarchy, and that I was able to make that my job.
And it's the DIY, spirit of punk rock that comes through. Speaking of DIY spirit of punk rock, Mike BlueHair, are you back?
Yeah, I just tuned back in.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
So we were running our mouths here, and we lost you there. But
man down.
Yep, but we got you back.
Well, and I should stop running my mouth. I should probably pop off here. I appreciate you actually having me on for as long as you did.
We love having you. Thank you so much for coming on, and please come back sometime soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll continue. That's what's so great about any time you sort of make a new connection, you kind of add that.
Yep.
And we might talk for a day or a week or a month or whatever, and you go, oh, wait, but that's still a connection. Like, we've still sort of built that out, and you kind of know it's there. So, again, that's I love that, and that's always, I think, so valuable. So I'll leave by saying thank you so much and just ask people to come check me out at MediaMonarchy.com.
Good stuff. I'll see you Monday.
Peace.
In the
Thanks
chat.
so much.
Bye. So, Mike, since you've been back, there's been some things that have happened with this latest decision with no Dakota Access, and I just wanted to get your take on it. Do you think that this decision is a victory, or do you think that it's very purposeful in that it's going to take some steam out of the movement, or do you think it's something else?
I think that this, since there's so many hundreds of photographs of Obama when he was campaigning with various native folks, he really made it a point to spend a lot of time out there getting his pretty mug on the face with as many First Nations people as he could during his presidential campaign, that it was really starting to make him look bad. People were starting to make memes of him saying, oh yeah, you're about natives except when we really need you, kind of thing. And these decisions were, in my humble opinion, were probably already in the works or already made by the Army Corps of Engineers and whatnot, and he just kind of jumped on it as an afterthought for political expediency, as it were. Also, these are the kind of temporary decisions that are made that can cut a movement that's building momentum off at the knees. If I were still there occupying that land that was rightfully, that I was the rightful, hypothetically, if I was occupying land that I was the rightful steward of, and I heard this was going on, I would use this as a rallying cry to say, this capitalist corporate machine is bleeding. Let's go ahead and kill it. Let's not slow down. Let's double our efforts, get more people to do Osheti Sakuin, and put more campsites directly on top of the pipeline routes. That's what I would do, because a decision like this could make people rest and take a breather. Meanwhile, the corporate oil governmental fascistic machine keeps rolling forward, while people are taking a break or taking a back from it. And I don't think that the First Nations people that have banded together to fight this good fight of clean water and protecting their grave sites should slow down one little bit. I think that they should look at this as a punch in the face, if anything, and keep fighting.
I would definitely agree with that. And I've gotten word that the guest that we spoke to last week, Cody Hall, there's been a warrant issued for his arrest, along with Jill Stein and the lady from Democracy Now. So they've
Amy Goodman. They're
Yeah.
going to arrest Good. Yeah, a friend of mine actually sat on a bus with her. I think it was a NATO summit in Chicago in 2012, I believe it was. I think that was the protest she was arrested at. She's not afraid of handcuffs. I mean, that's one thing you can say about Miss Goodman,
Yeah.
So.
and her footage, I think her footage was probably the best footage out there of the dogs. So they're going to try to intimidate her because
Of course.
because she has the best footage of those mercenaries that were sent, after the natives.
Yeah, I'm really kicking myself for that. I feel that I could have probably covered that better than anybody. But, that's one of the things that I regret about my trip out there, as I was helping a friend get some medicine at that time. So, because that's totally right up my alley.
Yeah, and the thing is that if you have such a big momentum behind this thing, Indians are coming from everywhere. There's probably more than 100 tribes have the Nation of Islam joins in. I mean, Black Lives Matter, all these people, and it's getting all of this attention. And they need to take the air out of that a little bit.
Of course. I would, if you're living in those camps, and you can hear my voice right now, I lived through the Occupy movement, and I watched the state and the government crush it. And the Occupy movement, we were viewed as a legitimate threat to the perception of power in the U.S. I would like to go through a few of the ways that the Occupy movement was crushed so that maybe people that are in this First Nations movement can recognize it, and maybe take steps accordingly, if I may.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, right on. Well, first thing, anytime corporate media interviews anyone, stand there with your cell phone and record the entire interview, because corporate media are in bed with the oil companies. They're in bed with the government. They're part of this power structure that's, tyrannized and oppressed you for hundreds of years. So you're not going to get a fair shake out of these people. So always take out your cell phone and record the entire conversation and upload that. Okay. I think the people that are staying in that camp, the various media organizations, are doing a really good job of what the Occupy movement didn't do too well. We did not control our own narrative and how it was interpreted. Keep doing whatever you're doing, media people out there. You're doing wonderfully. I would say to the various factions, whether it be the tribal elders or your elected politicians or your direct action folks, they're just there camping out, waiting for a direct action to happen to participate. And I would say to Red Warrior and Sacred Stone, whatever your political ideologies are, whatever your egos are, don't allow those to separate you. If you move in unison, you will be an unstoppable force. If you allow your egos and your politics this way or that way to sway you and separate you, you are weaker. So put aside whatever it is you have with each other and think about the greater good, which is your water and your sovereign territory. The Occupy movement allowed itself to be separated and internally fight with one another. It was like towards the end of the movement, it was like a bunch of crabs in a bucket, trying to keep each other from climbing out. So beware of that kind of thing. Also, just because there's news cameras around doesn't mean it's going to get interpreted in a way that that's going to be favorable to you. Like, for instance, the thing with the dogs. The alternative media is doing a really good job of reporting it, but the corporate media is, most of the corporate media is reporting that in a way that would make it look like that the First Nation folks were combatants in a fight, which is not true. Mm-hmm. So, you can't rely one little bit on corporate media. Everybody there has a cell phone. Everyone there in all the various camps need to contact Unicorn Riot or Last Rural Indians or anybody that's with your media and get your cell phone footage to your media people. Also, when you're hurt, I didn't see a lot of information about police reports. Injury reports in the hospitals. When you're trying to get legal remedy later, if you've been hurt by a cop or a dog per se, if you don't have an injury report from the hospital and documentation, it may as well not have happened. Mm-hmm. So pics or it didn't happen. It's just like Facebook. Like you need to document your injuries very clearly. Go to the hospital if you can. If you can't, go to those tribal medical vans that are parked there almost all the time and get the tribal medical infrastructure to document your injuries. It's very, very, very important.
Yeah, and there's the other issue is that people aren't filing against them. They're not only are they not seeking medical attention, but they're not filing charges because they're afraid of the cops. Because they've been involved in these direct actions, so they think they're going to get arrested, and they might get arrested. So
it's possible. Yes.
Yeah. So that's an issue.
Yeah. It's a matter of weighing what you think is best for you and what your limits are.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to be in the activist game, honestly, you have to resign yourself to. It's not a matter of if I'm going to be arrested; it's a matter of when. With these charges, they're not hardcore charges that any of these people are facing. As long as you don't burn one of the construction vehicles. I mean, if you've spray painted it, if you've trespassed, these are all minor misdemeanors. So it's not like you're going to go to prison.
Right.
So you may, if you've been bitten by a dog, you may want to report the injury and make a formal complaint, because, like I said, these charges, trespassing or any of this stuff, they're just minor charges anyway. I mean, and personally, I mean, I would be proud to be, arrested for something so awesome and to be part of history.
So there you go. So we have Nighthawk in here. You there? Hello? Nighthawk.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. What's up?
All right. Anyway, I got a friend there on the ground. Going to be there for another month, Rocky Hill. We're going to be working on doing some live streams, but of course, doing live streams out of there is not easy. Just no signal whatsoever. But we'll be working with Rocky Hall from this point out. Jason went out there. We did get some really good interviews. I'll be running those tomorrow. It's like we couldn't do anything live stream because there's just literally no signal. It's the middle of nowhere.
Right. And the satellite hookup that's there, they're not willing to really share bandwidth. They might say that they are, but they're really not. That's just the way it is. I think Mike got to play that game, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I got to play the jump through plastic hoops, and I just went there with the spirit of cooperation, wanting to help, but maybe this other guy will be responded to more favorably than I was. I mean, he's more than welcome to. I mean, I think you should encourage him to try to talk to the guy that hasn't said a lie.
We're not even going to bother messing with him. What we're going to do is day after. Everything is going to happen the day after. It just makes it easier, and it makes it easier for everybody, and they can get it all uploaded. And, I worked with Rocky and Oregon and all that kind of stuff. So, everybody's just going to have to be satisfied with the day after.
Yeah, man. Like, I walked all over that camp. There, you might want to tell him there's one spot that gets the intermittent internet. There's a really big hill right after you turn out of the exit.
Media Hill is where they're. Media Hill is where everybody's trying to conjoin, and then of course what happens is they all go up there and the tower gets overwhelmed. So. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, we're trying to get this out to everybody, and funding is a problem. It's like I'm paying out of my pocket to get people out there right now, and I can't keep doing that. I really can't. We have not had a single, I've spent $500 already, and we've had about $240 worth of donors actually help fund this, and I just did this on faith, right out of my own pocket.
The problem is it's so isolated that people just don't understand until they see it. And it is a big monetary drain. To get anywhere, you have to drive an hour, it's a nightmare. So if people can help out with funding, that'd be great, and help Revolutionary Radio get this done.
All right, I'm gonna pause the break again.
Okay.
I'm gonna pause the break for a second.
Okay.
But yeah, we have somebody that is out there on the ground. Mike, I'm sure you know Roxanne, right?
Peripherally familiar with, yes.
All right. Anyway, Roxanne's there for a month. She's there to work. She's doing her own thing, and she's there to help us and help us get the information out. And she's going to be there a month. That's her funding limit. But the other issue is her tech. Her tech is not good. We need to get her a better tech. So, that's what I'm looking for, is enough funding to get her, instead of running around with a camera and a laptop, to get her running around with a really good smartphone that can take video and get us some real-time information. And that's kind of where we're headed out, and people know what that costs. Hell, I don't even own a smartphone. I don't want one.
Speaking of information, you guys might find this of interest. My co-conspirator and fellow Film the Police Portland member, Sarah Long, has documented there's a state police checkpoint where they're documenting everyone's plate number as they come and go. If you
definitely. Actually, we've documented that already. We documented them documenting us.
Right on, cool. Well, yeah, but there's
everybody coming in, everybody going out, and
specifically the plate numbers. Yeah.
Yep.
So, welcome to the fascist USA. Apparently,
not saying I'm way ahead of you, but we saw this coming anyway. So you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say before we go, Mike, about the about how the National Guard how this is gonna play out in your mind? What you see coming?
I've covered these events for years, and the government's not going to deploy the National Guard just to watch one roadblock. There's probably a staging area somewhere where they have people need to look for a large parking lot where they have like rows. They're going to have decon showers set up so that their people, after they've possibly pepper sprayed or used tear gas on folks, they can walk through and shower off. So you're going to look for if there's all media people out there, you need to look for this area. It's probably going to be in a large parking lot, and you can document that staging area. I think would be a good place to start.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Catch you next week.